discipline your mind, and achieve goals. Silence. Right now, in this moment, there is a voice inside your head. Sometimes it pushes you forward. Most of the time, it holds you back. It tells you to wait, to hesitate, to choose comfort instead of progress. And without even realizing it, that voice has been deciding your life. Not your talent, not your intelligence, not your potential, your mind. Because the truth is simple and uncomfortable. If you don't control your mind will control you. Think about it. How many times have you promised yourself, "I'll start tomorrow"? How many goals have you delayed because you didn't feel ready? How many opportunities slipped away, not because you couldn't do it, but because you didn't act? This audiobook exists for one reason: to end that cycle. Welcome to Discipline Your Mind and Achieve Goals. This is not about motivation. Motivation fades. This is about mental discipline, the skill that decides who wins and who stays stuck. Because discipline is not loud. It doesn't feel exciting. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment. Discipline shows up when you don't feel like it. Discipline acts when excuses feel convincing. Discipline moves forward when quitting feels easier. And here's the truth most people never learn. Your mind does not naturally work in your favor. It seeks comfort. It avoids discomfort. It resists effort. That's why discipline must be trained. In this audiobook, you will learn how to take control of your thoughts before they sabotage you. Build mental strength that doesn't collapse under pressure. Stay focused when distractions attack from every direction. Act decisively, even when fear and doubt are loud. And become the person who follows through, every time. Not someday. Starting now. This is about becoming mentally dangerous, to excuses, to weakness, to delay. Because once your mind is disciplined, everything changes. Your habits change, your actions change, your standards rise. And when your standards rise, your life has no choice but to follow. So take a breath. Let go of who you've been. Let go of the version of you that waits, hesitates, and negotiates with comfort. This audiobook is not here to entertain you. It's here to reprogram you. If this resonates with you, if something inside you knows this is the turning point, stay with me. Because what comes next isn't easy, but it will change everything. Here is the continued narration, flowing directly from the opening and deepening the emotional and psychological momentum. Written for seamless audiobook delivery. You see, discipline is not something you're born with. It's something you build. And the reason most people never build it is because no one ever taught them how. They were told to stay motivated, to believe in themselves, to wait until they feel ready. But discipline doesn't wait for feelings. Discipline doesn't ask for permission. Discipline decides first and lets feelings catch up later. Right now, your mind is trained to react. React to stress, react to distraction, react to fear, react to comfort. Every notification pulls you. Every excuse sounds reasonable. Every delay feels justified. And slowly, almost invisibly, your life becomes a series of half-started goals and unfinished promises. Not because you're weak, but because your mind has been running without direction. Think of your mind like a wild horse, powerful, fast, unstoppable. But without reins, it goes nowhere useful. Discipline is the reins. It doesn't kill your freedom, it creates it. Because when your mind is disciplined, you no longer depend on motivation. You no longer wait for confidence. You no longer negotiate with excuses. You act, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. And here's the part most people avoid hearing. Every time you choose comfort over effort, your mind learns something. It learns that discomfort is dangerous. It learns that quitting is acceptable. It learns that delay is safe. But every time you act, despite resistance, your mind learns something else. It learns obedience. It learns resilience. It learns that you are in charge. This audiobook is about rewriting that internal contract. No more letting moods decide your actions. No more letting fear set your limits. No more letting comfort steal your future. We are here to build a mind that executes, a mind that stays calm under pressure, a mind that does not panic, procrastinate, or collapse when things get hard. Because life doesn't reward potential. Life rewards follow-through. And discipline is the bridge between what you want and what you actually achieve. Over the next chapters, you'll learn how to break mental resistance before it stops you, train your focus like a muscle, eliminate self-sabotaging thought patterns, build routines that run on discipline, not motivation, and turn discomfort into your competitive advantage. This is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming consistent. And consistency, done long enough, changes everything. So as we continue, I want you to make one decision. Not a promise, not a goal. A decision that from this moment forward, you stop letting your mind wander without command. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be disciplined. Because when the mind is disciplined, the body follows. The habits follow. The results follow. And what comes next is where the real work begins. Chapter 3. Discipline begins with thought control. Before you ever control your actions, you must control your thoughts. Because every action begins as a thought. Every habit starts as an idea. Every failure is born in the mind long before it shows up in real life. Most people try to discipline their behavior without disciplining their thinking. That never works. They tell themselves, "I'll just try harder." But their thoughts are still chaotic, undirected, undisciplined. And an undisciplined mind will always sabotage disciplined behavior. Here is the truth. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your thinking. If your thoughts are weak, scattered, emotional, and impulsive, your results will be the same. A disciplined mind does one thing exceptionally well. It chooses which thoughts deserve attention. Not every thought is true. Not every feeling is important. Not every urge needs to be followed. Most people treat their thoughts like commands. I feel tired. Stop. I don't feel like it. Quit. This is uncomfortable. Escape. A disciplined mind treats thoughts like suggestions. It listens, then it decides. And that decision is what separates leaders from followers, winners from wishers, builders from complainers. From this moment forward, you must adopt a new rule. You do not obey thoughts that weaken you. You acknowledge them. You observe them. But you do not follow them. Discipline begins the moment you stop identifying with every thought that appears in your mind. You are not your fear. You are not your doubt. You are not your hesitation. You are the one who hears them and chooses anyway. This is how mental strength is built. One ignored excuse at a time. One resisted impulse at a time, one uncomfortable decision at a time. And it starts with awareness. Because once you see how your mind tries to escape effort, you can stop it. And once you stop it, everything changes. Chapter 4. The War Between Comfort and Growth. Every day, you are pulled in two directions, comfort or growth. One feels safe, the other feels uncertain. One asks nothing from you. The other demands everything, and here's the brutal truth most people avoid. Comfort is addictive. Growth is earned. Your mind is wired for comfort. It wants shortcuts, easy wins, immediate pleasure. That's not a flaw. That's biology. But discipline is the ability to override biology with intention, to choose what's right over what's easy. Because every time you choose comfort, you reinforce weakness. Every time you choose growth, you reinforce strength. This is not about extremes. It's about daily decisions. Do you scroll or start? Do you delay or act? Do you escape discomfort or lean into it? Discipline is not built in dramatic moments. It's built in quiet ones, when no one is watching, when no applause is coming, when quitting would be easy and unnoticed. That's where the mind is trained, and this is why discipline beats motivation every time. Motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. Discipline is structural. It stays. A disciplined person does not ask, "How do I feel?" They ask, "What must be done?" And they do it. Not perfectly, not effortlessly, but consistently. Because consistency is the real superpower. And once your mind learns that comfort is no longer in control, once it understands that growth is non-negotiable, it stops resisting, it adapts, and what once felt hard becomes normal. That is the turning point. That is where discipline stops feeling like force and starts feeling like identity. And in the next chapters, we go even deeper into building habits that run automatically and a mindset that does not collapse under pressure, because discipline is not about intensity, it's about control. Chapter 5. Build discipline through daily structure. Discipline does not survive chaos. It thrives in structure. Most people fail not because they lack willpower, but because their days have no design. They wake up reacting, scrolling, responding, letting the world decide how their energy is spent. And an unplanned day always favors comfort. A disciplined mind builds systems so decisions don't drain energy. Because the strongest people don't rely on motivation. They rely on routine. Here is the shift you must make. Stop asking yourself what you feel like doing, and start deciding what you do every day, no matter what. Structure removes debate. When you know exactly when you train, exactly when you work, exactly when you rest, there is nothing to negotiate. Discipline becomes automatic. This is how high performers think. They don't wait for the right mood. They create environments where the right behavior is inevitable. Your surroundings shape your discipline. If distractions are everywhere, your focus will fracture. If comfort is always available, your effort will shrink. So simplify. Design your day so the disciplined choice is the default choice. Lay out your tools the night before. Remove temptations in advance. Decide your priorities before emotions get involved. Discipline is not about fighting yourself all day. It's about setting the game up so you win, and once structure is in place, your mind stops arguing. It follows. Chapter 6. Train the mind to act under pressure. Anyone can act when things are easy. Discipline is revealed under pressure. When stress hits, when time is short, when results matter, this is where most people break. Their mind panics, their focus scatters, their habits collapse. But pressure doesn't create weakness, it exposes it. A disciplined mind is trained before pressure arrives. It practices calm, it practices control, it practices execution even when emotions are loud. Here's the truth. Pressure is not the enemy. Untrained thinking is. You must rehearse discipline in uncomfortable conditions, work when you're tired, stay composed when challenged, finish tasks when quitting feels justified. Not every day, but often enough that your mind learns one thing: discomfort does not stop action. That lesson changes everything, because once your mind understands that pressure doesn't control you, fear loses power, stress loses authority, and discipline becomes your anchor. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need confidence. You need practice. Practice staying steady. Practice finishing. Practice doing what must be done, even when it's hard. And when pressure comes, and it will, you won't rise to the occasion. You'll fall back on your training, and your training will hold. In the next chapters, we'll lock this discipline into identity. So it's not something you do, it's something you are. Chapter 7. Discipline as identity, not effort. There comes a moment when discipline stops feeling like force. It stops feeling like resistance, and it becomes identity. This is where most people misunderstand discipline. They think it's something you do when you're strong. In reality, it's something you become through repetition. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you are becoming. When you keep promises to yourself, even small ones, your mind updates its self-image. I am someone who follows through. I am someone who does not quit. I am someone who does what must be done. That identity compounds. And once discipline becomes who you are, effort decreases. You no longer debate whether to act. You no longer negotiate with excuses. You act because that's what you do. This is why discipline must be tied to values, not moods. Moods change, values don't. A disciplined person doesn't say, "I'll try." They say, "This is who I am now." And identity is powerful. When discipline is identity, temptation loses leverage. When discipline is identity, pressure loses influence. When discipline is identity, consistency becomes natural. You don't rise every day trying to be disciplined. You rise and express discipline. And once you reach this stage, something remarkable happens. Your confidence becomes quiet. Your focus becomes sharp. Your presence becomes grounded. Because your mind trusts you. You've proven, over and over, that you do not abandon yourself when things get hard. And that trust becomes unbreakable. Chapter 8. Discipline creates momentum. Momentum creates results. Results don't come from intensity. They come from momentum. And momentum is built by disciplined action repeated daily. Small actions, boring actions, uncelebrated actions, but done consistently. This is where most people fail. They want dramatic change without disciplined consistency. They want massive results without daily effort. But discipline doesn't work that way. It works quietly, slowly, relentlessly. One focused session leads to another. One completed task builds confidence. One disciplined day becomes a disciplined week. And suddenly, without a single dramatic moment, your life starts to shift. Your goals feel closer. Your habits feel stable. Your mind feels stronger. Momentum removes friction. What once felt heavy now feels manageable. What once felt impossible now feels inevitable. This is the reward of discipline. Not instant success, but control. Control over your time. Control over your energy. Control over your direction. And control is freedom. In the final chapters, we will bring everything together, turning discipline into long-term achievement and mental strength into lasting success. Because discipline is not about suffering, it's about building a life that doesn't collapse under pressure. Chapter 9. Discipline is the bridge between vision and reality. Everyone has goals. Very few reach them. The difference is not intelligence. It's not luck. It's not talent. It's discipline. Because discipline is the bridge between what you want and what you are willing to do every day to get it. Vision without discipline is fantasy. Dreams without structure are just noise. A disciplined mind translates intention into execution. It breaks big goals into daily actions. It stays focused when progress feels slow. It continues when excitement fades. This is where most people abandon their vision, not because they don't want it badly enough, but because they underestimated the cost of consistency. Discipline teaches patience. It reminds you that success is not a moment, it's a process. A disciplined person doesn't ask, "How long will this take?" They ask, "What must I do today?" And then they do it. Again, and again, and again. This is how goals stop feeling distant. This is how progress becomes measurable. And once you see progress, real progress, your belief strengthens. Not belief based on hope, but belief based on evidence. You start trusting yourself. And when you trust yourself, nothing feels out of reach. Chapter 10. The disciplined mind wins the long game. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being reliable. Reliable to yourself. Reliable to your standards. Reliable under pressure. The disciplined mind doesn't burn out chasing quick wins. It plays the long game. It understands that consistency beats intensity, that patience beats panic, that control beats chaos. This is the kind of mind that builds real success. Not flashy success, not temporary success, but success that lasts. Because when your mind is disciplined, your habits align, your actions sharpen, your future stabilizes, you stop reacting to life, you start directing it, and that is power, real power. So remember this, discipline is not punishment, it's protection. Protection from distraction, protection from regret, protection from becoming the person who never followed through. Every disciplined choice you make is a statement, I am in control, I decide, I finish. And that mindset will carry you further than motivation ever could. If this audiobook challenged you, share the line that hit hardest and tell us, what discipline are you committing to today? Because the mind you build now is the life you will live later. And a disciplined mind always wins. Chapter 13. Discipline in Silence. Winning without announcement. The disciplined mind does not announce its plans. It does not seek approval before action. It does not require permission to begin. It moves quietly. Because discipline understands something most people never learn. The loudest phase is preparation. The quietest phase is execution. The results speak last. When you announce your goals too early, you borrow satisfaction you haven't earned. You leak energy before the work is done. Discipline keeps energy internal. It knows that consistency thrives in privacy. No applause, no validation, no explanation, just repetition, just effort, just showing up again and again when nobody is watching. And this silence is not weakness, it is strength. Because silence removes pressure. It removes comparison. It removes distraction. You are no longer performing. You are building. And when the results finally appear, they feel sudden to everyone else. But you know the truth. They were forged quietly. Through days of discipline no one ever saw. Chapter 14. Discipline over comfort. Choosing the hard path. Daily. Comfort is seductive. It whispers softly. It promises relief. It disguises itself as self-care. But comfort, when chosen too often, becomes a trap. Discipline understands this. It doesn't hate comfort, but it never lets comfort lead. The disciplined mind asks a different question. Not, what feels good right now, but what strengthens me long-term. Growth rarely feels comfortable. It feels awkward. It feels slow. It feels demanding. But discipline chooses growth anyway, not because it enjoys discomfort, but because it respects its future self. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you cast a vote for who you are becoming. One choice won't define you, but thousands of small ones will. And over time, the hard path becomes familiar. What once felt difficult becomes normal. What once felt impossible becomes expected. Discipline doesn't eliminate struggle. It raises your tolerance for it. And that tolerance becomes your edge. Because while others retreat when things get uncomfortable, you continue. Chapter 15. Discipline builds identity. Before results. Before discipline changes your life, it changes who you believe you are. Most people wait for results to feel confident. They wait for proof before commitment. They wait for success to validate effort. Discipline flips that order. It builds identity first. Every disciplined action sends a quiet message to your mind. I am someone who follows through. I am someone who keeps promises. I am someone who does not quit when it gets hard. These messages compound. You don't become disciplined because you succeed. You succeed because you become disciplined. Identity always comes before outcome. When discipline becomes part of who you are, your behavior stops feeling forced. You no longer ask, should I do this? You say, this is just what I do. And when discipline becomes identity, excuses lose their power, because you're no longer negotiating with motivation. You're honoring a standard. This is how ordinary people become unstoppable. Not through talent, not through luck, but through the quiet decision to act in alignment with who they choose to be, every single day. Chapter 16. Discipline under pressure. Staying steady when life hits back. Anyone can be disciplined when life is easy. The real test comes when things fall apart, when stress rises, when energy drops, when emotions demand control. This is where discipline separates itself from motivation. Motivation disappears under pressure. Discipline remains. Because discipline is not emotional, it is structural. It doesn't depend on how you feel. It depends on what you've trained. Under pressure, the disciplined mind doesn't panic. It slows down. It simplifies. It returns to fundamentals. One task, one breath, one step forward. Discipline doesn't ask for perfect conditions. It adapts. It knows that chaos is not a reason to stop. It's a reason to rely even more on structure. And every time you stay disciplined during difficulty, your confidence deepens. Not surface confidence, unshakable confidence. Because you've proven something to yourself. I can be trusted, even when it's hard. That belief becomes armor. Chapter 17. Discipline is the bridge between intention and reality. Most lives don't fail because of bad intentions. They fail because intentions are never carried across the gap. That gap, between what you want and what you do, is crossed only by discipline. Dreams don't move on their own. Plans don't execute themselves. Goals don't chase you back. Discipline is the bridge. It turns thoughts into actions, actions into habits, habits into identity, identity into destiny. Every day you stand on one side of that bridge. On one side is comfort, excuses, delay. On the other side is growth, progress, becoming. Discipline is the decision to cross, even when the bridge feels long, even when the destination feels far, even when no one is watching. And here's the truth most people never realize. You don't need to cross the whole bridge today. You just need to step onto it. One disciplined action today shortens the distance tomorrow. Momentum is born from movement, not motivation. Chapter 18. The discipline of self-respect. Discipline is not punishment. It is not restriction. It is not suffering. Discipline is self-respect in action. When you wake up early instead of hitting snooze, you're saying, my goals matter. When you do the work instead of making excuses, you're saying, I value my future. When you control your impulses instead of reacting, you're saying, I respect myself. Self-respect is quiet. It doesn't announce itself, but it shows up in disciplined behavior. And the more disciplined you become, the less you tolerate from yourself and from others. You stop accepting low standards. You stop entertaining distractions. You stop betraying your own potential. Discipline teaches you something powerful. You don't need permission to take yourself seriously. You don't need validation to commit to growth. You don't need applause to stay consistent, because the strongest approval comes from knowing you did what you said you would do. Chapter 19. Discipline builds identity before it builds results. Most people chase results. Disciplined people build identity. Results are visible. Identity is invisible. But it's what creates everything you see. Every disciplined action is a vote for the person you are becoming. When you train, even when you don't feel like it, you become someone who doesn't negotiate with weakness. When you focus while others distract themselves, you become someone who values depth over noise. When you keep promises to yourself, you become someone you trust. And self-trust changes everything. Once you trust yourself, hesitation disappears. Once you trust yourself, confidence grows naturally. Once you trust yourself, discipline becomes easier, because it's no longer forced. You're not trying to be disciplined anymore. You are disciplined. That identity shift is the turning point, because from that moment on, you don't ask, should I do this? You ask, who do I choose to be today? Chapter 20. Discipline thrives in boring consistency. Here's a hard truth. Discipline is not exciting. It's repetitive, predictable, uncomfortable in its simplicity. And that's why it works. Most people quit because they expect progress to feel dramatic. They expect motivation to feel electric. They expect transformation to feel cinematic. But real growth feels quiet. It feels like showing up when nothing changes, like doing the work when no one notices, like trusting the process without evidence. Discipline thrives in boredom, because boredom is where consistency is tested. Can you do the right thing on ordinary days? Can you stay committed when there's no emotional reward? Can you remain disciplined when progress is invisible? That's where separation happens. That's where the disciplined pull away from the distracted. And one day, without warning, the results appear. Not suddenly, not magically, but inevitably. Chapter 21. Discipline is choosing the harder path first. Every day presents you with a fork in the road. One path is easy, comfortable, familiar. The other is disciplined, uncomfortable, demanding. Most people don't consciously choose comfort. They drift into it. They scroll instead of study. They delay instead of decide. They rest instead of push, long before rest is earned. Discipline is the act of choosing the harder path first, so life becomes easier later. Because comfort compounds pain, and discipline compounds freedom. Every time you choose the harder option, you gain leverage over your future self. You build resilience. You strengthen focus. You sharpen self-respect. And over time, what once felt hard becomes normal. The disciplined path doesn't stay hard forever. It becomes familiar. That's when others look at your life and say, "You're lucky. You're talented. You make it look easy." They don't see the thousands of moments where you chose discipline when no one was watching. If this audiobook resonated with you, share it with someone who needs it. And tell us in the comments, what discipline are you committing to starting today? Your next chapter begins now.